Hello, everyone. We've reached the end of the term and the end of the course. And so this is going to be just a short wrap-up video. In some ways to summarize the course, but actually really just to say goodbye until I see you again in the winter for MSCI 342. So what did we do or try to do in MSCI 245? First of all, to note, this is a relatively new course. The first time it was offered was last summer during the start of the pandemic. Here we are continuing in the pandemic, and you've got the second version of it. So it's not yet been offered in sort of a very traditional format yet, where we have in-person lectures, where the laboratories are set up so that you can come in, work side by side with people, have a TA or myself circulate and help you. All of those things are unfortunate. Same thing goes with tutorial. Even a lecture, you could more easily ask some questions and so forth and so on. And so that's, to me, it's disappointing that those features of the course aren't there. We tried our best to compensate or give you some sense of normality for the course, but it can't be the same. I just wish it was different. I'm sure you do as well. I hope as we continue on with the great rate of all of our vaccinations, I encourage you, if you haven't, if you're one of the few who haven't yet gotten vaccinated in Canada, to please do. Go out there, get your vaccine. It's the only way we're really going to be able to get through this and to be really ready for coming to campus in the wintertime. Anyways, what was the goal? The course is called Databases and Software Design. We used to have a set of 3 courses in management engineering that started with databases. So there was a course called 346 Databases. And then there was a course, MSCI 444, which was Information Systems Design and Analysis. In that title, in and of itself, it basically tried to cover everything, so to speak. Because assuming you already knew how to program, it then, like, this is the whole kit and caboodle of everything you need for information systems design and analysis. And then we had MSCI 342, which was Principles of Software Engineering. And students complained that there was a lot of overlap in those courses. So the databases would be taught, and students would, in their lab, get introduced to PHP and sort of how to make some web apps. And they got to make a group project to make a web app. And then they'd go into MSCI 444 and they'd learn how to design a database as well. And they'd be told to work in a group to build a web app. And then they'd go into MSCI 342 software engineering, and they'd be, as a group, often building a web app. So students just are like, why am I doing this over and over again? And especially the amount of database overlap between 346 and 444 was a lot. Anyways, so we created MSCI 245 to replace and merge 346 and 444 into one course, and actually basically to create a 2-course sequence that starts with databases and software design, MSCI 245, and continues on into the software engineering course. The idea being in the software engineering course that we're going to use a lot of what we've learned now in the first 3 information systems courses, and you've worked independently in those courses. Now we're going to learn how to work as a team, to work effectively, actually, and also to solve a client's problem. You're not going to be given a specification in 342. You are going to have to discern what basically needs to be built. It's an open-ended problem. But I am getting ahead of myself here. So in 245, big topics were relational databases, sort of a lifelong skill, actually, I feel, is learning SQL or SQL, whatever you want to call it, the structured query language. That shows up a huge amount in industry, and so knowing it is a really useful skill. And then a really big thing is database design. You might not always be in a position to get to design the database yourself. You'll often join companies and there'll be an existing database, you know, with 50 tables in it, very complex. You might get to read an entity relationship diagram, or there might be some other diagram of the database. But when it comes to designing, we've covered the basics here, and in particular, and some of the key properties and the ways to do it. But really, if you know how to make an entity relationship diagram, from that you're likely to design a good database, one that is doesn't have very many problems with normalization and those other aspects that we talked about. Then we moved on. Let's actually use our database. Let's not just write SQL for it and pretend we're only going to run queries against it from a terminal or something. Let's actually write code that uses the database. So we saw a little bit of that, a two-tier application, but the big emphasis is on three-tier. This modern world where we have a client in the browser, we have a web server, and then it has a database. The database might live on the web server, or it might live on another machine. When you're on Heroku, actually, the database is it's on another machine. It's not on the same server as your web server's on. It's all hidden from you in the cloud. It's a very slick setup for your production deployment. Anyway, so we learned this by coming up to speed on the Rails framework using Ruby, which is Ruby on Rails. And the big thing, the big takeaway is this concept of model, view, and controller for that Rails framework. And another component of all of this is to really start to think, I didn't write it here, but of course was to start thinking about your web applications in a RESTful manner. This idea really that you're creating an application programming interface that's communicated with HTTP. And this is a design philosophy that really allows us to better design web applications so that they can grow and that they work in a sensible fashion. Yeah, so this part is a lot. And one of the reasons it's a lot is because these modern web frameworks this is a true industrial scale web framework. There's a lot in it. There's a lot, just so much to read. I think it can be quite overwhelming. I tried in the course to guide us to the critical components so we can start building stuff so that you don't have to read everything, but you still end up having to read an awful lot. In all of this also, besides learning SQL, was the idea of let's learn a new programming language. Ruby, it's got some features and some functionality that are that overlap, of course, with all programming languages, but also some new features. And part of the skill in this course is, yeah, I've learned Java, I've learned how to program. I can now pick up a book and learn a new programming language, start using it. I can do that. That is a lifelong skill to develop. And the next thing I'm sure you're going to learn is going to be Python, probably. You've also learned R. You're going to be learning other languages, probably like MATLAB. It just goes on and on and on. It's one of your key tools is how to think in a computational way, how to use programming languages, and how to learn new programming languages. And so this is sort of the transition. We don't bother to teach all the details to you anymore. And you now know how to learn new languages by having already learned one in the past. All right. And this is really, it's a lifelong skill. You're always going to be learning new technology and new things, and you're going to learn it by reading, doing tutorials, and other sorts of work. All right, 342, what distinguishes it? Well, we're going to use all of this. You're absolutely going to need to know everything that you learned in 245. And, well, of course, all the programming material that you learned in 121 and 240 as well. to be able to actually build information systems. What's the big switch? Well, now we're really going to go to the model of we're going to work in teams. And it's not just, oh, let's go work in teams. It's going to be, how do we work in teams? What are the processes that we need to follow to be an effective software team? So there's a lot in 342 about that. So it's not just about coding. It's about how do we work as a team to do this and how to solve the client's problem. As I said, you're not going to be given a specification. You're going to be given a client, and you're going to work with a client to solve a problem. Big things are, it's got agile development. We focus on Scrum in the course. And of course, all these development practices that you're going to need to learn to be an effective software team. One of the biggest things that teams need to be effective and to really be doing software engineering is to truly embody and fully have tested all their software. And so testing becomes a really big component now. Whereas in past assignments, it's been, yeah, you should test your code. We're going to grade it. You want to make sure it works right, so you should better make sure it works right before we grade it. Now, it's you need to make sure that it's testing not only so that the team stays cohesive, but so that you know you're delivering something for the client because that works. Because we're not testing your projects. Your projects are delivered to the client, and the client wants to know that they work bug-free. So I don't need to teach you all of that course right now in the conclusion to 342, but I want to stress that absolutely you're going to use all of this stuff in 245. That's the framework. We're going to use Ruby on Rails. You're going to be making a new web app for some sort of client, but you're going to be doing it as a team. So if you didn't quite get everything in 245, you have an entire another term to get back up to speed on it. I do suggest if you were perhaps still struggling with Ruby or other things in Rails, that maybe you take a little bit of time during the your co-op term to freshen up some of your reading or do some practice work. By the way, all the videos that existed for the winter term, the winter 2021 term for MSCI 342 are on YouTube. You could actually check those out if you wanted to. I know you probably don't, but they are there. I am teaching it in the winter, so you'll have me again. All the news is that we will be in person, so you probably won't though see my face anymore. You'll just see my eyes. I'll be having a mask on. I assume that we'll have some way of all existing in one lecture room. We'll all be wearing our masks. We'll be doing lots of work together. Yeah, with this pandemic and the Delta variant, or who knows what variant will exist by then, absolutely. Like again, I just want to encourage you, get those vaccines, because it's going to be vaccines plus masks that's going to get us through this. We're going to need it. And we all want to stay well and healthy and not get other people sick either. So as a final message, I encourage you to do that. Great. I hope 245 delivered upon this for you, gave you the chance to learn this material. And I do look forward to working with you in 342 and really sort of rounding out a lot of the information systems in the fourth course in your sequence. And now, how do we really build bigger apps as teams? I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you have the best of luck with your final exams. I wish you the very best of luck with your co-op, and absolutely, may you and your family and everyone you know stay well and healthy, and that's about it. All right, bye-bye.